7:01. I will call to order the Tuesday, June 24th edition of the Norton Select Board. Let the record show that all 5 members are present, along with Town Manager Michael Units. Good evening, everybody. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Evening. All right. So to start things off, we do have our public comment period. If in the agenda, it's quite packed, so I'm going to ask to try to limit things to about 2 to 3 minutes per speaker if we can. If anybody is here to speak, just put your hand up now and we'll get to you. All right, I don't see anybody raising their hand either virtually or on the camera, so we will move on to appointments, resignations, and retirements. So Christine, I think you have some of these queued up. I will read some of these in. First up, you have the appointment of Oliver Garcia as a driver labor CDL2 to the Highway Department.
Yeah, just let me know. This is my first time doing one of these. Just let me know what you read off of it.
I think we just typically read the body of the letter, and should be good.
Okay. Alrighty, so this is to the Select Board from Michael Units, Town Manager, June 3rd, 2021. Notice of appointment of driver laborer CDL2. I hereby notify the Select Board that in accordance with the provision of Article 4, Section 2, lowercase b of the Norton Charter, acting in my capacity as appointing authority, I have appointed the following individual as driver laborer CDL2, Oliver Garcia. Said appointment was made on June 3rd, 2021 in accordance with the provisions of the Norton Charter and will be effective June 18, 2021, unless the Select Board votes to accept or reject the appointment prior to that date. However, I specifically request that the Board's acceptance of this appointment with an effective date of July 6, 2021.
Excellent. Mike or Keith, anything you want to add before we vote?
I just want to say that Oliver, he has a Class A license. He's working at towing trucks, plowing. He's very mechanically inclined, so I just think he's a real good fit for the department.
Excellent. Thank you, Keith.
You're welcome.
So seeing no other comment, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the appointment of Oliver Garcia as a driver laborer CDL2 to the Highway Department.
So moved. So moved.
Can I trade the motion for a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. We go to the vote. Meg?
Yes.
May?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
I too am a yes. Right. Congratulations, Mr. Garcia. Welcome to the Highway Department. Next up is the appointment of William L. Watson Sr. as a full-time water sewer technician to the Water Sewer Department.
Alrighty, to the Select Board from Michael Units, Town Manager, June 21st, 2021. Notice of appointment of full-time water sewer technician. I hereby notify the Select Board that in accordance with the provisions of Article 4, Section 2, lowercase b of the Norton Charter, acting in my capacity as appointing authority, I have appointed the following individual as full-time water sewer technician, William L. Watson Sr. Said appointment was made on 2021 in accordance with the provisions of the Norton Charter and will be effective July 6, 2021, unless the Select Board votes to accept or reject the appointment prior to that date. However, I specifically request the Board's acceptance of this appointment with an effective date of July 4th, 2021.
Mike, anything you want to add? I can see Frank on.
Bill is transferring over from the Highway Department to the Water and Sewer. He's worked in the Highway Department. I know Keith may know the exact, but I know it's over 20 years. And now he is going to help out with the sewer department.
All right. So Keith,
I know
wins
a
one,
third.
loses one on the same night.
What's that? Yeah, I lose one. Yeah, I know it. Well, you don't like plowing snow anymore, I guess.
All right. So, any questions or comments on this appointment? Seeing none, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the appointment of William L. Watson Sr. as a full-time water sewer technician to the water sewer departments.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Go to the vote. Meg?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
And I too am yes. Congratulations, Mr. Watson. Next up, we have the reappointment of the following individuals as special police officers to Norton Police Department effective July 1, 2021. Timothy P. Garapi and Robert R. Whitfield.
Is that it?
Yep, that's it for tonight. We'll take the third one up at our next meeting.
Okay, is that how we're doing it?
Yep.
Okay.
You can read them both in, and then we'll if
Got
there's
it.
a letter.
Okay, to Michael Eunice, Town Manager, from Brian M. Clark, Chief of Police, Special Police and Matron reappointments, June 21st, 2021. I respectfully request that you reappoint the following individuals to the Police Department effective July 1st, 2021 for the fiscal year 2022. Timothy P. Garapi, Robert R. Whitfield.
And Mr. Chairman, these are annual reappointments. These are special police officers that will be used when needed for detail work.
So, thank you, Mike. Any questions or comments about these appointments? Seeing none, Chair entertains a motion to approve the reappointment as special police officers to the Norton Police Department effective July 1, 2021. Timothy P. Garapi and Robert R. Whitfield.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. For the vote. Meg?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
Right, to MES. Brings us to the reappointment of the following individuals as police matrons to the Norton Police Department effective July 1, 2021. Susan Huff, Emily Archer, and Amanda Goodwin. So we'll do these in one month as well.
I respectfully request that you reappoint the following individuals to the Police Department effective July 1st for fiscal year 2022. Police Matron Susan Huff, Emily Archer, Amanda Goodwin.
So moved.
I was going to say this is another annual reappointment for police matrons, which get called in to deal with any female prisoners that get brought in. All right, I heard a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Meg?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Michael? I heard saw your lips move. I couldn't hear you.
All right. Aye.
And I too am a yes. Congratulations to Ms. Huff, Ms. Archer, and Ms. Goodwin.
Mr. Chair, just really quick. Is there a specific reason why Mr. Greenwell isn't being brought up this evening as it was on the letter and the agenda?
Mike, do you want to speak to that?
Yep, it's been put off until July 8th.
Was there a specific reason? As Chairman, Paula, was there a specific reason why?
What's that, Michael? I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. Was there a specific reason why?
It's just that appointment is just being reviewed now.
Thank you all. Next up, we have the reappointments to boards and committees. Mike, what would you like us to do for this one?
If you could just reappoint the as listed, that on the list that was provided for you, then you don't have to go through each one.
Okay. Is everyone comfortable with those reappointments?
Jeff, can you give me just 1 minute on those?
Share my screen as well, so share that.
I can't get it formatted here.
Rotating it myself.
Mr. Chair, I have a clarifying question.
Absolutely, Christine.
For whenever someone's getting reappointed to a committee or commission, do they get a letter like reminding them, or is it kind of just a different way?
Defer to our town manager or Jen.
Yep. They do get a letter. Everyone is asked if they want to be reappointed. And we actually had confirmation of the last one yesterday, but everyone was sent a request to confirm that they wanted to be reappointed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
For those playing along at home, I'm just scrolling through to get to the correct page in our
Page 23.
23. Thank you so much. It's 127 pages to scroll through.
And you'll be appointing the people that are checked off as yes. As you can see, there are 4 people on the list that said they did not want to be reappointed.
So Jack, I'll motion that we appoint all those who say yes, with the exception of Michael Toole, and take that in a separate vote.
I would.
Because he can't, I don't think he can vote for himself.
Correct. That's a good idea.
That's appropriate. All right, so Chair, entertain a motion to...
I motioned.
Oh, you motioned it. All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. Meg?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
And I too am yes.
And Jack, I'd like to motion to appoint Michael Toole to the Economic Development Commission.
Do we have a second? All right. Meg?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
I too am a yes. Congratulations, Michael.
Thank you.
You want to, Jack, if you could just ask Michael so you can get his abstention on the record.
Oh, Michael.
I abstain.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mike. Okay. Then move on to appointment of a select board representative to the Gantry Advisory Board. Mike and/or Jen, would you like to educate us as to what that is?
So this is the Greater Attleboro Transit Authority, and Brad was the representative previously.
And what does that entail?
So this would entail going to GATRA board meetings. I don't think there's many. Brad was not overwhelmed. Probably quarterly meetings that he had to attend.
Is anyone interested in signing up for this? From what I understand from Jen, this is typically something filled in by the chair, but I by no means feel entitled to do so. So if anyone is interested in doing this, sounds like quarterly meetings to go forward.
Mr. Chair, if nobody else is interested, I would step up to do it, but I know that I'm the county representative as well, so I would glad, if somebody else wants to do it, I'd be glad to step away.
I'm not
Do it.
seeing... Was that Christine?
I can do it.
Right.
Yeah, that's okay.
Right. So we have Christine and Michael. Michael, are you withdrawing your consideration with Christine's volunteer?
Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you, Christine. So Chair will entertain a motion to appoint Christine DeVoe as the Select Board representative to the Gantry Advisory Board.
So moved.
Second.
Excellent. Meg,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
Christine,
I abstain.
Michael,
Some dog abstains. That's an aye.
I too am a yes. Excellent. Thank you very much for volunteering, Christine.
No problem.
Jen, if you're on, if you wouldn't mind getting Christine looped in with the powers that be over there.
I can do that.
Thank you. Next up is the appointment of Paula Renery as a member to the Council on Aging.
And if I can, Mr. Chairman, just say that I know Beth Rossi was excited about this appointment. Paula has been volunteering quite a bit over at the Council on Aging, and they look forward to her being on the commission.
Excellent. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the appointment of Paula Renery as a member to the Council on Aging.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion second. Mick,
Yes, and I think Paula's going to be great, so I'm excited. We're lucky.
Renee,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
I am a yes as well. Wonderful. Right. That brings us to licenses and permits. So for this first one, seeing as how my wife is on this, I will be recusing myself from the discussion. But, it is a vote to approve the one-day beer and wine liquor license to Norton Embracing Educational Development, aka NEED, for a public event at the Everett Leonard Park from 12 p to 5 p on Sunday, September 19th, 2021. I believe we have a few members on. Michael, I will turn it over to you to facilitate this next part.
Sorry, totally caught me by surprise here, but so Mike, do we read the license? You don't read the license, but Rex, the details around the license.
Sorry,
How
Mike,
about-
so many people were clicking in, I didn't hear it.
The license, this is the first event, this first liquor license, one-day liquor license.
Mhm.
It's at the NEED. It's at the Evergreen Park. Is there anything else that we don't need to read the liquor license for the record?
No.
Okay. I'd like to would accept a motion to approve the one-day beer and wine liquor license for the Norton Embracing Educational Development for a public event at Evergreen Park from 12 noon to 5 p.m. on Sunday, September 19th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Motion in a second. And, Renee,
Yes.
Meg,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
and I too am a yes. And Jack, I'm gonna pass it over to you. I apologize. I was not.
No, I should have given you a heads up. That one caught me off guard. Thank you very much. All right. Next, we have a vote to approve the one-day all-alcohol liquor license to Rebecca Devine for a private event at Everett Leonard Park from 12 p to 6 p on Sunday, July 4th, 2021. This is all signed off as well. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right. Couple motions, couple seconds. Meg,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
and I am a yes as well. Thank you. Next is a vote to approve the one-day beer and wine liquor license to Jeffrey Winslow for a private event at Everett Leonard Park from 12 p to 7 p on Saturday, July 17th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Did you ask for that?
Yes, so thank you. Meg,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
and I am a yes as well. Which brings us to Our next license, vote to approve the one-day beer and wine liquor license to Christina Cagney for a private event at Evergreen Park from 11 a to 7 p on Sunday, September 5th, 2021.
Point of inquiry.
Yes, sir.
Mike, I know what the liquor laws used to be, but it used to not be able to serve alcohol before noon on Sundays. Has that been adjusted for, and does that apply to service licenses for one day?
I am not sure, Michael. I'll check on that.
I think it's still law. If I'm not mistaken, restaurants can't serve alcohol before noon, but I could be wrong about that. Can we, Mr. Chairman or Mr. Units, can we approve this pending that with an adjustment or?
Approve it subject to meeting all regulations established by the ABCC on hours.
Okay, and will you make sure that this is up, we get an update on this next meeting?
Yep, and I'm not sure if that's the case, because I think they serve mimosas on Sundays for breakfast at restaurants now, but I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, I know it used to be the law, so I
Yeah.
don't know that, but I'm not sure if it's changed. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the one-day beer and wine license for Jeffrey Winslow for a private event at Evergreen Park. I'm sorry, nope, I apologize. Next one. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve a one-day beer and wine liquor license for Christine Gagnon for a private event at Evergreen Park, subject to all regulations of the ABCC on Sunday, or timing on Sunday, September 5th, 2021.
Right. You have a second?
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion. Meg?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
Yes as well. Which brings us to our last one. Vote to approve a one-day beer and wine liquor license for E&G Brown for a private event at Evergreen Park from 3:30 p through 6:30 p on Saturday, June 26th. So this Saturday.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Meg?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
I too am a yes. So no other licenses and permits. We will jump into the announcements. Before we turn it over to Christine to go through the two that we're aware of, I do apologize for not starting the meeting with this. I got a bit distracted. I just wanted to acknowledge the passing of longtime Norton volunteer Paul Helmrich. He passed away last week, I believe. Paul was just such an amazing guy, kind-hearted. I think he left a lasting impression on many that are currently involved in town government, just as a kind-hearted guy. Mike, I don't know if you've probably known him better than most of us on this call. Let's just see Brad joins, so Mr. Bramwell on the spot to say a few words about Paul if he feels so moved.
Not being used to being on these calls now, I had to stumble to figure out how to unmute myself. Paul was on the finance committee as long as I can remember. I think back when I was on the school committee, he was his wife, I believe, was a teacher in the school department. He taught at Wheaton College. Very educated person, very caring person. He took the time to listen to people. He did have his own point of view, and he would stick by it, but he did listen to both sides, and he was a great asset to the town of Norton. And I think all of us who watched him for many years learned a lot from him about how to handle ourselves in public and at meetings, and what it was like to listen to both sides. And just when he kind of retired from town service, it was a loss. But just to hear that he's passed is a great loss to me and to the town. And thank you for the opportunity to say something.
Sure.
Yeah. If I could, I just wanted to say, Paul was very helpful to me when he was on the finance committee, and I did tell his family that when I was nailing at the wake, I wasn't actually praying. I was just saying, please, Paul, how much can we put in OPEB this year? That was always the best moment on the finance committee meetings, when Paul would be refusing to put money in OPEB. But I always loved it. I'd always bring it up with him first.
So, thank you guys for sharing that. I believe the duration of his service at the town exceeds 50 years, if I'm not mistaken. Just what a special type of person to dedicate that much of their lives to the betterment of their community. So I think Norton is a little worse off without Paul Helmrich around. So our condolences to his family and friends, of which there are many. He will be missed. With that, Christine, I will turn it over to you for our announcements.
Alrighty, so on Saturday, June 26th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., there's going to be a Norton Pride rally at the Town Common, and I'm just going to read what the meeting post is about. It's a rally for LGBTIA+ folks and allies. Please join us at the Common with your signs, flags, banners, etc. to celebrate Pride Month. NPD is aware of the event. Weather looks to be in the 70s and overcast, which I still think that is. And it's still probably a good idea to bring some water. So if you're out and about, please think about joining the folks there. And then for Paint the Town Purple 2021, if you would like your driveway to have one of the purple ends on it, the sign-ups are now open. We can show Norton Pride. All proceeds go to the grant fund through NEED, which goes directly to Norton Public Schools. There is a link on their Facebook page as a Google Docs.
Any other announcements to share this evening?
Hey, Jack, it's Renee. I don't have an announcement, but just to add on to what Christine said about the Paint the Town Purple. I believe last year there were a couple of us who had offered to pay to have ends put by in the fire department lane, the police department, and town hall. I don't know if any of those happened. I know, Mike, you had approved that, but I would just like to reiterate that I'm certainly willing to support that financially. So if those haven't been done, if we can get those on the list since you have an in with the group.
I think they may have been done. I think she hit those last weekend, but I can I'll ask her and get that back on. I think I volunteered for that. So we can get that squared away.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. That wraps up the announcements. So on to new business. Discussion and or vote to set the special town meeting.
Mr. Chairman.
Right.
So the recommendation would be that you set the town meeting for August 9th and at 7 o'clock. And so if you do that tonight, the warrant would be open. All departments would be notified tomorrow that the warrant is open, and an ad would go in the newspaper. That would be published on the 29th. And the special town meeting warrant would close on July 7th. And the finance committee chair, the moderator, the town clerk would get an article list. And then the warrant would go to the finance committee chair, moderator, and town clerk by July 12th. And the FinCom, they're planning on meeting for year-end business, and they could handle the special town meeting on July 13th. And SelectBoard would vote articles and sign warrant by July 22nd. And then the warrant would be posted on July 23rd. And the warrant with recommendations would have to be available by July 30th. And would you want the auditorium?
I think that it would be the crux of the conversation. So August 9th is a Monday, so 7 p.m. obviously in the evening. In the past, this board has erred on the side of caution when it comes to holding events indoors versus outdoors. So with the rapidly changing landscape with regards to COVID, open it up for discussion to see if we feel comfortable moving a special town meeting back inside, either the auditorium or the high school gym.
Jack, I'm certainly fine with that. I think, whatever the protocols in place are at the time, if any, would just need to be followed. And I know, I think the only concern would be, I don't think that's going to be a huge meeting, but the air conditioning. Is there air conditioning in the high school?
I believe there is in the auditorium, yes.
Okay.
Mike, could you just say those dates one more time?
Sure. So the warrant would open tonight. All departments would be notified tomorrow, and would also notify the newspaper. So it will be published in the newspaper on the 29th. The warrant would close at 4 p.m. on July 7th, and an article list would then be forwarded on July 7th. On July 12th, the warrant would be sent to the Finance Committee Chair, the Moderator, and Town Clerk, and the FinCom would meet on July 13th, and the Select Board would vote articles and sign the warrant on July 22nd, and post the special town meeting warrant on July 23rd, and then the special town meeting warrant with recommendations has to be available by July 30th.
That last one is again? I'm sorry.
July 30th.
What's the July 30th as well?
The warrant with recommendations from Finance Committee.
Yeah, the votes. Okay, thank you, sir.
So, any other discussion on inside versus outside? I share Renee's comfort level with moving things indoors with the understanding that any applicable precautions would be in place.
I agree.
Okay. Michael and Mike?
Yeah, do we vote in motion or is it just?
Yeah, we'll do that. Renee, you were saying?
I was just going to ask about, did we put an item on here to talk about articles for, other than the TIF and the Leonard Street one? Or are we just sending articles to Mike via email?
I don't believe there's anything else on here for articles this evening, so I would say send them to Mike.
Okay.
We can discuss them at our next meeting.
No, I think the warrant will be closed at our next meeting, right?
Yeah, we'll put them in and then we can go
Okay.
through the list once it's with Mike.
Yeah, that's why I was asking. Okay.
Very good. All right, so Chair would entertain a motion to set a special town meeting for Monday, August 9th at 7 p.m. at Norton High School.
So moved.
Second.
Seeing no further discussion, Mike,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
I'm a yes as well. We're moving back indoors, folks. That's exciting. All right, along those lines, discussion and or vote on the warrant article for the Yale Appliance TIF agreements. I can pull up that material while you catch everybody up to speed, Mike.
Yep, so you have a draft of a article that is recommended to go on the warrant. And this article would approve a tax increment financing agreement between the town, Yale Appliance, and Leonard Street Phase 2, the owner, for property located on a portion of property shown on Assessors Map 11, Parcel 25, Parcel 2501, and Map 12, Parcel 15, and which TIF agreement provides for real estate tax exemptions over a 10-year period at the exemption rate scheduled set forth therein, and also authorize the board to execute the TIF agreement and any documents related thereto, and to approve submission to the Massachusetts Economic Assistance Coordinating Council of the TIF agreement and any documents related thereto, all relating to the project as described in the TIF agreement, and any necessary documents relating thereto, and related submissions, and to take such other action as necessary or appropriate to implement those documents and carry out the purpose of this article, and take any other action relative thereto.
Mike, can I just ask, were you reading that from the email dated June 14th from Michelle?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
There are a couple of different options, or there are a couple of different ones in the packet.
Yeah. I know Lynn Tokarczyk is on, who represents the company, Yale Appliance, and I know she's very versed in this, working with the economic councils.
I appreciate that. Have we had town council review? Have they approved this language?
Yeah, I will have them review it before the final draft of the warrant.
Okay, so they haven't yet reviewed it?
No.
I would prefer to wait to vote on it then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's fine, but put it on as a placeholder, obviously. Yep.
Yes.
That sounds good. Alrighty. Anything else on this one? Seeing none, we will move on for discussion and vote on warrant article accepting land on Leonard Street and East Main Street.
This one too, I'm just looking for your approval to put an article on the warrant. I'm waiting for information from the engineers on this. When they widened out Leonard Street, Condyne, part of their property, now became part of Leonard Street. So in order to accept the new width of the roadway as it was widened out, that land would become part of the town of Norton. It's part of the layout. So I'll be getting plans from them.
Is that the map that's in our packet, Mike?
Yeah, it's hard to see.
Yeah. I will share it on there just for reference. There's just an awful lot of lines to try to figure out what's going on there. Are we talking about, I'm assuming we're talking about the parts in red?
Right.
The easements? Yeah. Okay. So it's just going to be a placeholder article to relocate the easements. I'm fine with that. Any issue, discussion? All right. Placeholder goes on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike, you're staying in pole position here. Review and discuss letter from the USW Local Union 9517 regarding the Conservation Director.
Yeah, let me get to that.
Did you skip an item, Jack?
Did I? Oh, shoot, I did. I'm sorry. Sorry, Mike.
When you said you were still on, it made sense, but then you started talking.
No, I scrolled too far on. I'm juggling multiple devices to keep track of the agenda and the packet materials here, so scrolled too far. Mike, you might be interested in this one as well. A review and or approve an extension of the town manager's employment agreement. So I think that would probably be relevant to your interest, so I apologize for skipping that over. Renee, I don't know if you've been working with town council on this. Do you want to speak to where things are at, or would you like me to start?
You can start, sure.
Okay. So the board has been in discussions over the past few weeks with regards to the town manager's contract, which is had a notification date of the end of June 2021. I think what has been prepared for consideration tonight is a 6-month extension to bring the end of the contract to December 31, 2022, adjusting the notice of non-renewal date from June 30th, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. So taking that down from 6 months to a year. I'm sorry, to a year, from a year to 6 months. And I believe that is the extent of any major changes. Open it up to the board for any further discussion before we make a vote on it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
May.
Okay.
Thank you, sorry. Yeah, I would, we've obviously spent a lot of time doing this. We did a review within public session and so forth. Like to kind of just say, I'm actually ready to vote on his initial contract tonight, but I know that the extension was done to give your members some more time in working relationship with Mike to kind of see this. So I just wanted to kind of say that, and because I'm ready to probably do this, I'm going to probably sit and let the abstain from the vote. We'll get to that.
Thanks, Michael. So I think, Mike, you touched on a couple of good points about, one, it is rather challenging and awkward for all of this to be done in public view, regardless if it's good, bad, or otherwise. It is just an awkward way to have to conduct business, but that is what is required. So that is what we do. I appreciate Mr. Munitz's patience and working with us throughout this process. And the other part of the challenge is with an ever-changing board of members, especially with the amount of turnover the board has seen in the past few years. It's very, very tough to make a decision on something like this with a relatively small window of experience. So that was one of the contributing factors to the 6-month extension, to give our newer members more time to experience the board, to have the opportunity to work with Mike, and allow the board to work with the town manager in perhaps different ways. So I open it up to Michael. You said your words. Renee, Christine, Meg, please feel free to jump in.
Jack, I would just add, again, our discussion was for the benefit of the newer members, which I'm totally in support of. I want to make sure that people are comfortable with decisions that they make and have the information. So I was certainly willing to work with Mike on this and town council, and I appreciate Mike's attention to it. And it was fairly easy to have the conversation and get to the point that we are at now.
Yeah, and I just want to thank Mike and Renee and Jack and Michael and Meg, everybody, for being flexible, for understanding that we haven't been involved over the past couple of years. So coming and being helpful to us, and I just appreciate everybody's flexibility with this.
Excellent. Thank you all. So without further ado, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the extension of the town manager's contract for a 6-month period as outlined in the document circulated just before the meeting.
So moved.
Good.
Motion and a second. Meg?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Michael?
Abstain.
I am a yes. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate all the effort that's gone into that over the past few months. Thank you very much. Right. Now we'll get back to reviewing and discuss the letter from USW Local Union 9517 regarding Conservation Director.
Hey, Jack, I'm sorry. Before we go on to that, I just want to make note that while we've extended this, our conversation and executive session contains still more negotiation areas. So I believe that those will remain confidential until such time additional discussions happen with Mike on the contract.
Good point. Thanks for bringing that up. All right. Mike, so back to the union letter.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I provided you with a letter that I received from John Buenapane, the U.S. Steelworker staff rep, concerning comments that were made on social media about the conservation agent. And, the union was expressing their concerns with those comments. And I'll work with town council on a response to the union's concerns that were raised.
Thank you, Mike. Any other? No further discussion on that. We will go on.
Jack, I just want to add, I had been on social media, and so this letter was pretty surprising when I read it. I completely agree, and I hope as a board, there was some conversation or some discussion in the letter about the select board and the support of town employees, and whatever Mike is working out with town council, I would expect that be there, because I think that that's the minimum of what our responsibility is, and certainly this was quite surprising to me. But I think we owe something. Let's put it that way.
We can continue to have those conversations. I believe the specific incidents has begun to be addressed privately. We'll see what comes of that from there. But your point, I think, is a good one about just the nature of social media and with regards to town employees. I think it behooves not just members of the board. I think this is more of an open item, is to just when you act and when you post with kindness. There's just been a lot of rhetoric and anger and frustration for good reasons, and I think that can give way to things perhaps we wish we wouldn't have said. So before we all click the post button, as most of us tend to do, just let's pause and make sure that's reflecting of what we truly intend to convey. So thank you for that, Renee. And,
Jack, I would just add to that. I mean, the select board certainly is on a different, position, and I understand that we're residents and we all have our opinions, but I know we talked about this probably a month or two ago, but I think we as a board need to consider what our social media policy is, what the social media policy is, for the town and town employees, because this isn't the first time, right? And I imagine that this won't be the last, and not specifically with the board, but overall.
Mr. Chair, I would be very cautious on limiting speech. I mean, there's more pressing cases regarding this, and obviously hate speech and so forth is never acceptable, but critique of individuals and it tends to fall in protected words, right, or speech. So I understand their concerns. I understand those, but if I'm just talking about just in general, we should be careful that we don't try to go too wide regarding the policy, because we will end up in litigation, because you can't limit people's speech or opinion as long as it's not malicious and or hateful. I would,
Michael, I'm not asking to limit speech, but there are still open meeting guidelines and laws that we need to follow, and I think we're treading very closely as a board.
I think that's going to be a matter of conjecture. But I mean, I think agreed. If there's something that's in closed session that's discussed, that's obviously not appropriate. But that's not how you started. As you said, talked about a social media policy regarding social media posts and so forth in towns, and I'm just saying, I want to be very careful that we're not overstepping our bounds in someone's right to have an opinion, especially if it's not tied to hate speech or other issues. I mean, listen, this is not going to be the first time, and Brad probably attests to this because he's on the Coliseum. Select boards get heated, right? Sometimes they get heated on subject matters, and sometimes it's we have a unique job where we're trying to do what's right for the town. We're trying to do what's right for the residents, and sometimes opinions do come up. But I just would be, if we were going down a policy road, I would just caution this board to be very careful regarding words on, limiting words and posts on social media.
So, Michael, I'm sorry, Meg, if I may, just real quick.
Yeah.
Michael, I would equate it to the remote participation policy that we have, right? Where the policy is in accordance with Mass General Law. That's what I'm alluding to, right? Like there are things from an open meeting perspective that are very clear, and I think for us to be in front of that and to communicate that so people are aware would be in our best interest.
And I would just add again, I'm super frustrated. I would love some social media guidelines because I'm not on it very often. And then I get word from other people like, oh, you better go on. There's all sorts of stuff happening. It's just, and I don't even know what or if I should be responding to anything. And, I'd much rather be actually face to face with people and actually have conversations than, throwing stuff around on social media. So I would just like some guidelines around it. And if it becomes an area or a place or space that we're going to be communicating, I need to know that because then I probably need to be on it. But right now, it's not something I do. So we just need some parameters around it. That's all.
I think that's a great point, Megan. And maybe, Mike, we can, I know Lauren, when the Charter Commission was formed, did a nice overview for them of open meeting law. Maybe, I know she's on here, we won't ask her to do that now, of course, but maybe we can have that in one of our future agendas.
And before we get into social media policies for the town at large, I think looking at how the board interacts with the public via social media is probably the first step and one that we have the most control and influence over. I think that's what we should focus on first, and then it's a bit of a cliche, but lead by example with what we want to do and document it, and that way it's very clear and in compliance with OML, my best friend.
Yeah, and Jack, I don't know what you mean by town at large. My comment was specific to boards, committees, and potentially employees.
That's what I meant.
Okay.
Just within the municipal sphere. I'm not looking to make a Norton resident social media policy.
No. That is not within our purview. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, again, I would be very, very cautious of this because what one person thinks is acceptable statement, someone else may not think it's an acceptable statement.
But I think that there's ways to approach that, Michael.
I'm sorry, can I just finish? It's not violating hate speech or the law, and it's an act of opinion. Who am I to say that person can't say that? I'm a select board member, and most of this board just stop that. If it's not a violation of a closed meeting, protected closed meeting, if it's not a hate speech, if it's not, who are we to say you can't post that on social media? So I would just really caution this board to be very careful on the policy grade, because right now we're thinking of that policy today. We don't know how it's going to affect other people down the road. And that's all it's.
Thank you for that. I would say that a policy is a living document that can be edited and amended as time goes on. But as the select board, as the executive branch of government in town, I believe it is incumbent upon us to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And a part of that is not publicly criticizing town employees or other board members. I don't believe that is a bridge too far. That is, however, not what this topic is about for this evening, and I think we can probably have a much more robust, more active workshop to try to hammer out what a potential policy may look like at a future meeting. You good with this one?
So moved.
All right. Good. Next up is a discussion and or vote to reconsider the vote taken on June 10, 2021 to withdraw the appeal of Norton v. PESA from the SJC without prejudice. I will note that we do have attorneys from KP Law, who is the town's counsel, Lauren Goldberg and Alex Weishaupt, to help guide us through this discussion and any potential votes on the matter. Who wants to start?
Are we looking for town council to start, Jack?
No, I was looking to start the discussion on within the board.
Okay, so I can start because I asked for this to be added on to the agenda. I don't know what the specific rules are, but of course I wasn't able to meet for the last meeting. And, in respect, I know that we've pushed other votes before to have the entire board available and able to vote. And so this particular item we've been discussing for several weeks in executive session as a board. And, I asked for the vote to be reconsidered so that the entire board is available, which specifically is me who's not available, and that there was more than a minority motion moved.
Could Renee explain what that last part, more than a motion? I'm confused by that last part.
So it was approved with 2, which is minority representation of the board, Michael, because we only had 4 folks available and there's 1 abstention.
Right.
I probably didn't word that properly.
Yeah, I mean, that abstention is a right. It's not anyone has the right to abstain, so it's not
I agree.
An unfair vote is you're applying.
I'm sorry, what did you say was applying?
I don't think it's an unfair vote as your statement would apply.
I didn't say it was an unfair vote. I just said that the vote was approved by a minority of the board.
I do apologize. I had brief audio issues in the middle of what Renee was saying. I came back in at the tail end of that, so I do apologize.
I just said, Jack, that Michael indicated that I was implying, I'm sorry, Michael, I don't know your exact words, but I was just clarifying that what I said was that the vote was approved by a minority of the board with 2 members approving.
And I just pointed out that an abstention is a right of a vote. And if someone abstains, it's still a majority vote if it's 2-1. So that's all that my point was. And if I misspoke, I said it, and I didn't speak. I said it, so I withdraw by saying an unfair vote. It's still a majority vote. So that's why an abstention is an abstention, but it's still won by a majority vote.
So if I can perhaps clarify, I don't believe there's any question legally on the validity of the vote that has been concluded by town council, who is on, can both nod their heads in agreement that a 2-1 with 1 abstention vote with 4 members present is certainly a majority vote and carries the motion. So that part is not in question. I think, Renee, not to put words in your mouth, I think you just wanted the opportunity to perhaps be involved in that discussion, since I think your voice is perhaps a bit different than the one that prevailed the vote.
I would appreciate the respect to be involved in it, only because we have approaches as a full board, even in the agenda, and when we were, trying to meet, we tried to make sure that everybody was available, right, so that we were all hearing the same thing. And, after the meeting that we had in executive session, the last thing I thought in the next open meeting was that we would put forth a motion on this particular item, right? Like the agenda read that it was, to review the letter and the citizen petition, right? And I understand that at the end we do have that any matter can be voted on, but, certainly reading that agenda item, I never thought after the meeting that there would have been a vote specifically on this litigation, between that and our last conversation in executive session. So I was quite surprised that conversation happened in open session, that, again, a vote was taken without the entire board being represented, understanding that, yes, it can. But again, it just goes back to, what we had been trying to do to make sure that we had full representation.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Michael.
I did not realize Renee was not going to be at the last meeting. I did bring the motion, and I did ask to be able to have it put onto the agenda because of the time sensitivity of the matter. I mean, this is not a situation where you can just drag our feet or so forth. In my opinion, and I said that in my opinion. That's why I made the motion. It was not to monopolize on a situation. When I asked if I ever put it on the agenda, I had planned on bringing that motion, and I also so I just wanted to kind of state that as about. I really think it's important that what on this in particular matter we try to stay, what we can stay in public open session, we keep in open session. But obviously litigation and so forth and settlement talks and all that needs to be in private session. But I would still encourage a transparency on this matter because there are citizens that have signed a petition, a good number, 1,500 total. I don't know exactly how many Norton residents, but I would say it's several hundred that are very concerned about this issue.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Anything else to add?
Jack, my question is is it within the board's right to vote to reconsider the previous vote?
At the risk of sounding like a broken record to our last meeting, any member of this board can make a motion at any time. It's not my board, it's our board. So the floor is open for anyone to make any motion that they so choose. Whether it lives or dies that's the fun part.
So Jack, I'm going to move that the board vote to reconsider the vote taken on June 10th, 2020 to withdraw the appeal of Norton vs. Kayak from the SJC without prejudice.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. A motion and a second. So this requires a majority vote to reconsider. Mike?
I'm gonna make sure I'm saying this right. So I'm saying yes to reconsider or yes? What is it?
So a yes vote would indicate your support to rediscussing this vote. So basically nullifying the last vote, reconsidering the vote from June 10th. A no vote would be to close the discussion and keep the original decision. Okay. Christine?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Michael?
No.
I am a yes. So, motion to reconsider passes. So, we're back to the discussion phase. If a motion were to be made, and I defer to our colleagues at KP Law if making sure we are following any processes here appropriately. If I'm misstating anything, please correct me. Make sure you it's done out of ignorance and not malicious intent.
Mr. Chair, that was handled appropriately. Now, what's back before you is the matter that led to the vote, so you're kind of right back before the vote, able to discuss any of the issues that were raised at that time.
Okay, so do we act as if that motion has been made and we are in the pre-vote discussion for that, or?
That is correct. It's just as though you are backing up to the minute before the vote.
Okay. So the motion, as I understand it, and Michael, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, is for the select board to direct town council to withdraw the Norton v. Asa case from the SJC without prejudice. Is that correct?
That is the motion.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Christine.
may I have the discussion before we make the motion?
So the motion has been made. It's now is our open discussion. We don't have to just jump right into a vote. So.
Okay.
Jack, I'll second for discussion. Go ahead, Christine.
Okay, I don't know if this is more directed toward, Lauren or Alex.
Point of parliamentary
Go
procedure,
ahead.
Mr. Chairman. I think if there's a motion, it has to be either accepted it or not before discussion happens. It is debatable. I mean, it's debatable after once it's seconded, and discussion can happen after that, but it still needs to be seconded by motion, if I'm not mistaken.
My understanding is that the motion has been made and seconded, and now we are debating
Okay,
the vote.
I thought you're accepting the discussion, not the motion.
Yeah, no, I think we're just trying to be overly cautious, but the motion has been made, there is a second, we are now in the discussion leading to any vote. Got head nods from town council, so I think we're good. Christine, back to you.
Okay, so now I want to make sure I'm asking the right questions, but I'm just going to ask you. You tell me no, I can't ask it if I can't. So we made two motions were made at the last meeting. One of them was to bring both parties back to the table. Is that a possibility to do that even though sent to the court and is in their decision mode?
Yeah, that's a separate. That was a separate motion. So that motion isn't even part of the reconsideration. That motion would have to be this. That motion passed 4-0. So we're still encouraging all parties to get back to the table and actually asking our lawyers to work with me to mediate the issue, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Chairman.
That is my understanding as well, but I'm wondering if Christine's question was more from a legally practical standpoint, that both paths can be pursued simultaneously and not completely independent of one another.
That's exactly what it was, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you asking me to change my motion?
No, I'm asking, sorry, Jack. I'm asking if the second motion that was made, if there's a way to bring both parties back, like the second motion said, back to table, even though the case is in the SJC's hands. So that's why it was more of a question for our KP Law friends.
Mr. Chair, I'll leave the actual substance to Alex, but to the extent that we're talking about trying to negotiate something and withdrawing at the same time, it would be more effective, in my opinion, if we tried to negotiate first, and then if that was unsuccessful, to then pursue the board, whatever else the board directs.
I would agree with that as well. I think we can do both at the same time.
And just as a point of clarification for, again, Lauren and Alex, just because a withdrawal request is made to the SJC, that does not mean that they are required to honor it. Right? It is fully up to their discretion whether or not to accept or reject that withdrawal request.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's absolutely correct. And it's also the case, to just clarify, there are two amicus briefs that were filed. So if there were to be a decision to seek withdrawal or to seek dismissal, that would also need the agreement of those parties. It doesn't mean it's a guarantee either way. The court could still say, this is an important issue, we're going to hang on to it and rule on it. And so, yeah, all we can do is ask. That is the extent of what we're able to do.
I also would note, Mr. Chairman, that I believe the motion was to withdraw without prejudice. We have not found any precedent for withdrawing a matter before the appeals court or the SJC without prejudice. The only option that we found that has happened is with prejudice, meaning that it could not be brought back.
Thank you for clarifying. And another general question. If the withdrawal request was as a result of a settlement, is that typically viewed differently than those without a settlement with a one-sided withdrawal?
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Chair. To the extent that the parties decided to ask for the matter to be dismissed due to a successful settlement agreement, that is something that the the Supreme Judicial Court Justice would look at as part of the request that the town made. Again, you know, it's more, I believe it's more likely under those circumstances for the SJC to be inclined to say, okay, this can be dismissed and we're not going to rule on it. But even with that kind of agreement, it's not 100% guaranteed. Just, I mean, nor is litigation generally, as everyone knows. I don't need to get into that, but you know, yes, if there was a settlement agreement, I do believe there would be more of an opportunity to have the matter dismissed by the court than without one.
And one final procedural question. When the SJC rules, it rules on the matter of the case, but not the extent of the enforcement action. That would then kick back to the town at that, or to whoever brought the case forward. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, it's hard to predict with certainty how the court will rule, but my inclination is that they would rule on the issue of whether or not the enforcement order itself is valid and leave it up to the enforcing body, in this case the Conservation Commission, to determine what compliance with that order would be satisfactory.
I'm sorry, and I'll ask one last clarifying question, and then I will stop. If a settlement agreement was included as part of a withdrawal request, the SJC declined the withdrawal and ruled anyway, does that settlement then bind the parties no matter which result it was, or does that become null and void?
Mr. Chairman, in my opinion, we could draft the settlement agreement such that it would remain valid regardless of the outcome of the SJC case.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Any other discussion or questions from the board? So I will acknowledge that we have Mr. Pisa online. He has requested the opportunity to speak. I defer to town council if that's okay. I'm fine with it. It's a bit of a mucky area, but I want to, if it's allowed, and I'd like to give him the opportunity to speak.
Mr. Chair, I would say that as a matter within the board's discretion. As you know, under the open meeting law, the board is not required to allow any person to speak at a public meeting, including, in fact, other members of the board in particular circumstances. So the question of whether to allow that is really yours. I would remind you, however, that we are in active litigation, and so there could be risks of having an additional substantive discussion at this point.
Okay, so I will put on my chairman's hat and say that I'm willing to go down this road. Mr. Pisa, please just be mindful of the challenges that surround all of us through this. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. So the question I have is, the vote that was just taken, which was basically to decide whether the prior vote was valid and legal or not, the decision of whether that vote could have been reconsidered seems to be a matter of debate. Town council sees it one way, our council, who is on right now, sees it another way. I don't understand why the vote was allowed to continue just now.
So I will open this up for town council. However, my understanding is that the vote to reconsider had nothing to do with the validity or legality of it. Reconsidering a vote is the purview of any item that comes before the board at any point, I think within reason. I defer to my town meeting times and Robert Rules of Order experts on there, but it was had nothing to do with the legal validity of that. It was purely, as a board, a member can request the reconsideration of any vote that has been taken.
Mr. Chair, through you, so that is the case, that's our interpretation, and again, I think the fact of the question, which is really asking a legal question, is the kind of thing that I would suggest avoiding, but the bottom line is we don't think there's any question that the board retains the right to reconsider a vote, except under very limited circumstances, which would not be applicable here.
Thank you, Lauren.
So just so I understand, any vote that is ever taken by this board could be recalled at any time or reconsidered. Is that true?
Mr. Chairman, through you.
Mm-hmm.
To speak generally, there are limitations on rescissions or reconsiderations of votes that are self-executing. In my opinion, this is not a self-executing vote, and as the chair pointed out earlier, the original legality of that vote isn't at issue. This was purely a matter of policy within the board's discretion. Whether it wants to do that or it doesn't want to is up to the board and the board only.
So basically, what you're saying is what I said. The board can decide anytime to reconsider any vote that was ever taken.
Mr. Chair, through you. In fact, no, that actually isn't. I tried to be very clear that votes can be reconsidered for the most part by the board in its discretion. That's why we see policy changes over time. That's why we see, different things on warrants over time, etc. The bottom line is the matter of whether to reconsider this vote, it was not a self-executing vote, remains with the board, and there is no limitation on the board's ability, in my opinion, to reconsider this vote.
Thank you. Mr. Pisa, anything else?
No.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Marr? You are on mute.
Good evening, everyone. So, just real quickly, this isn't the point I really wanted to make, but from what I just heard, if this case continues to drag on, and next April, new people are elected to the select board, they can make motions to rescind the vote tonight, and this could potentially never end, and this can go on forever. And it seems anti-American and almost Putinish to continue to hold votes until you get the result that you want. And that's what we're seeing right now. As a citizen of the town and a voter, I'm offended by this. I think that it's wrong. I think that a legal vote was made. That has been documented, apparently. And now, I don't know the circumstances, so I may be speaking out of turn, but Zoom makes it really easy to attend these meetings. And an excuse that I wasn't here, you don't have to be in town to be at these meetings because you don't have to be in person.
Mr. Marr, I would not go down that path. Your points about votes are fine, but questioning the dedication or presence of any member is not something that I'm going to entertain this evening.
Okay. So the next point that I want to make is it seems hypocritical that immediately after talking about giving over $1 million tax break to a business that isn't even here, and I've purchased from Yale Appliances in the past at a previous home. I think they're a good company. But we want to give away $1 million and bury a business that's been here because of the actions of someone that has nothing to do with them. It's appalling to me. It's appalling to me, and the town needs to do everything they can, whether it be through speaking up now or voting in the future to change the way these things are being done. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, please.
So the first thing I want to point out is it is not the case that every vote that's taken can be undone. I talked about votes that are self-executing. There are consequences for taking action that's inconsistent with a signed agreement. There are consequences for taking action inconsistent with a contractual obligation. It is not that every vote can be reconsidered. However, there can be reconsideration or a new way of looking at things as boards move forward. And there is no prohibition on that being done if the matter itself has not already occurred, taken place in existence. Even then, as I said, the potential is, and we've seen this at town meeting, as a kind of potential issue, not necessarily in Norton, but at many town meetings where there's a contract and the question is whether to fund the second year. And, the explanation to that is we could choose not to fund it. Town meeting could choose not to fund it. That's town meeting's prerogative, but there are implications if town meeting does not fund that. So there are, I think it is quite appropriate for a board that wishes to talk about something further to do so. And ultimately, Mr. Chair, again, I don't think it's appropriate to be debating the merits of the board's decision making on this when there is litigation pending. Certainly, it's useful to have feedback, it's useful to have perspectives, and I completely agree and understand with the decision that you made to allow discussions. I would, however, point out that, there are the status of the lawsuit, the investment that has been made or that hasn't been made, and what's left before the judge are all different things that might weigh on a decision or might help the board make a decision on its litigation strategy. In and of itself, none of those things is what's being voted on tonight. So I just wanted to kind of clarify the scope of that comment.
I appreciate that, Lauren. Thank you. And I understand that it's walking a fine line. However, I personally feel that it's important for us as members of the board, and myself in particular, to face head on any of the feedback that we get from the town. I don't want to hide behind or be seen to be hiding behind anything. So I welcome the comments, I welcome the feedback. I understand that it creates a bit of an issue in some areas. So we'll try to continue to walk that line as best we can. So thank you, Bill. I see two more hands, and then we'll move on. Mr. Kutkowski. I don't see that you're on mute, but I can't hear you, sir.
Take him out of order, Jack.
Sorry, what's up, Michael?
Why don't you take him out of order, move to the next speaker.
Yep, so Mr. Kutkowski, we'll circle back to you in a minute if we can figure out your audio issues. Was the Brodsky family next?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I want to make a comment and ask two questions, if I could. I want to comment to you, Mr. Conway. I appreciate personally the fact that you're allowing this conversation to continue to go on. It would be very easy for the board to just hide behind, the idea that this is, pending litigation and we can't talk about it. And I appreciate that we're being allowed to discuss it. So I'll say that first. My one question is, what does it mean when you say that a vote is self-executing? I'm sorry, I don't quite understand that phraseology. And my other question is actually more sort of on background of this particular situation. And I'm just wondering, in all of the kind of communications I've ever seen, I feel like I've never actually seen anything that explained what legal pursuits were made against the original family. Like, what action had the town taken against the prior owners, and how far had that gotten? Like, in the court process and so on, trying to pursue the original owners for the violations that the Pez's are now being held accountable for. So those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Lauren, I'm pretty sure you can answer the first one. I don't know how much detail you can get into the second piece.
Yeah, I'll respond by saying self-executing means a vote that upon its occurrence makes something else happen. So, for example, accepting a statute or entering into an intermunicipal agreement or signing off on a warrant, once the warrant's posted, there's no more opportunity to reconsider anything. So there are a million examples like that. The decision about what direction to go in from a legal perspective and with respect to an ongoing matter, and I appreciate both the chair's comments about not wanting to kind of hide behind the fact that there's ongoing litigation here. Obviously, as a town's attorney, my job is to try and protect the town's legal position. And, as probably most of the officials that I work with would likely say, is that our position is typically conservative because that's what we're told, that's what we're, hired to do. We're hired to protect the town in a way that we think is appropriate. Regardless, though, the concept of a self-executing vote, again, that's one of the exceptions, as I said, to reconsideration or to the ability to reconsider it, because the vote itself makes the matter take effect. In this case, obviously, there's a direction to council. That vote has, there hasn't been up to now a submission of that letter or that request, and the court hasn't acted on it. So all of those things mean that the vote to pursue withdrawal is not a self-executing vote. Thank you. And I'll defer to Alex if he has background that he feels comfortable sharing.
Yes.
Sure. So thanks, Mr. Chairman. The first time that the commission issued an enforcement order relative to this property was the enforcement order that's at issue and under appeal in this case. And that's because the first time that the commission was made aware that activities on the site went beyond the scope of what was approved back in the 80s was when the Pezas contacted the commission during their doing their due diligence to purchase the property, when they applied for a certificate of compliance, and an investigation was done that revealed that fill was placed on the property beyond what was approved during the 80s.
Thank you, Alex. So if I can restate that to make sure that I'm understanding correctly, there was an open order of compliance with the property in question, order of conditions dating back to the 80s that have not been closed out. That was discovered when the Pezas contacted the Conservation Commission, I believe it was in 2014, in the attempt to obtain a certificate of compliance to get a clean title, and as a result of, I'm assuming, a routine inspection of the site to do that, it was found that the original owners had not abided by the terms in that order of conditions.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Michael.
I think it's important that, everything that was just said is 100% obviously accurate, but I think it's also important that there was a death of the original owner, property went to his wife, there was certain notification things. The Pezas fell into a statute of the law, the repo statute of the law, and that's what the whole case is about. That basically allows them, it's a law, that basically that the time expired on this, and in both the summary judgment they found in favor, and in the injunction, the initial injunction, they found 5 points. They appealed back to the summary judgment, and they found in front of the Pezas as well. But I think those are important things where it's just not them just ignoring. They fell into the law, and that's an important thing that keeps getting missed in the discussions here. They are, in compliance because the law is the way the law is written.
I will say that I am not a lawyer.
I know I'm going to get slapped around by the attorney, so I'll sit back.
I think this is going into that gray area of the case that was mentioned. So I know we've had more hands shoot up. I would like to circle back to Mr. Kotowski, and then I think we'll move on. Just in the interest.
Can you hear me now, Jack?
Loud and clear, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Issues on my end. Sorry. For Lauren, the city attorney, not all votes may be revisited, but this one was. That's the crux of the argument tonight. So naturally, that's why we're focusing on why this vote was allowed to continue this time. The board has had 7 years to discuss this. And here we are re-voting because a vote last time turned out not in the favor of everybody that wanted to turn out that way. So we re-vote again. So we're focused on this vote because this vote, none of us believe should have happened because it was resolved in the last meeting. I read a letter, Alex, from the Conservation Commission dated August 11th, 1988 to John Texera from Kathy Romero, the Conservation Director then, saying that the Army Corps of Engineers surveyed the property and found no violations of excess fill, so long as no more was put there. And you're correct, in 2014, 26 years after that letter, the Pisas hired Nova Armstrong Associates Incorporated to do a site survey. They returned a report on July 11, 2014 that states, quote, "This environmental transaction screen documents that appropriate inquiry has been made into the previous ownership and use of the site consistent with good commercial and customary practice. Conclusions. Based upon the findings of this environmental transaction screen, Nova Armstrong has not identified any potential environmental concerns in connection with the site or adjoining properties. There has been nothing found in the 2 surveys that have been done by Nova Armstrong and the Army Corps of Engineers. I have contacted everybody on this board via email asking for the publicly obtained documents that show the city's crux of their complaint of where the environmental abuse took place, where the damage is from that fill that the Pisas didn't put there 26 years before they bought the property, why the 7 years of harassment of these 2 folks that have nothing to do with the fill that was supposedly put on that property continues all this time afterwards. And I've asked everybody on the town committee to point me in the direction of the town's documentation that proves the environment has been damaged or is being damaged, that refutes the 2 separate reports we have from the Army Corps of Engineers and Nova Armstrong Associates. Every one of them has hid behind you and said, on advice of council, we can't give you that information. Why would council be advising the town committee to tell residents they can't get publicly owned documents? My question to both is, can you answer that for me? Where do I get the documentation that proves that fill has damaged the land to the point where $80,000 is being charged to these people legal fees to defend from something they had nothing to do with? Where can I get those documents? I'm glad you're both here, Lauren and Alex. Now you can tell me where to go get those documents so the town folks don't tell me on advice of the council. They can't give me that information. Where do I get that information?
Thank you, sir. Lauren and Alex, is that information available? And if not, when can it be?
I'm going to defer to Alex. That really goes to the substantive issues, and Alex is more familiar with that.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. The enforcement order, the orders of conditions that were approved, the as-built plans that show the current conditions of the site, I believe those are all, publicly available records.
I appreciate that, but where do I go to get them? Was my question. And everybody on that council, with the exception of Ms. Toole, told me on advice of council they can't answer that question. Where do I go to get them so I can see them?
Mr. Chair, through you, if I could.
Please do.
Public records request should be made through the town clerk as the chief records access officer. The town clerk will forward that to the department that has control over those records. So that's the way to make a public records request for those documents, and the town has legal obligations to respond to it. So that's what I would recommend.
So if I'm hearing correctly, if Mr. Kotowski can reach out to the town clerk, there is no legal reason for those documents to be withheld. The town clerk will forward to the responsible department, and within a reasonable amount of time, those documents will be produced and available.
Jack, I appreciate that. It's very frustrating on this end to reach out to every one of you folks via email and get the same response. On advice of counsel, I can't answer that question. I'm asking for public records. I'm not asking you to tip your hand at what's going on in your case. Show me the public records that prove that land is being damaged, because the only documentation that I've seen is a letter from the Army Corps of Engineers in 1988 saying that is simply not true, and another environmental transaction screen done when the Peases bought the property 26 years later by Nova Armstrong saying that is absolutely not true. There's no damage there. There was no excess fill put in. There's nothing wrong with that property. And if I may, the Nova Armstrong Associates Incorporated survey also surveyed the adjoining land. And in their report, they clearly say in the report that the adjoining land is not being damaged either. So for 7 years and $80,000 later, these people are paying for something that doesn't exist. I want to see what the town has. Thank you.
So, Mr. Kotowski, please feel free, sending you my email in the chat. Feel free to copy me on any future correspondence, and I will help you make sure that you get the documents that you're asking for.
Will do. Thanks, Jack.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt. There is another option available if the former speaker wanted to pursue it, and that is the court documents are all considered to be public records. They can be.
I've read most of those.
Okay.
I haven't seen any of. I've seen the stuff that I've already spoken about tonight. I haven't seen any of the town's evidence or any of the town's documents proving that there's illegal fill there, excessive fill, and they're killing the environment by something the previous owner did. I don't see any of that anyway. So that's exactly what I'm looking for. The specific stuff that the town has that says these people are killing the environment based on something they didn't do. That's what I want to see.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Lauren. And we will do our best to get that to you. You should have my email. Please keep me in contact. I'll do my best. All right. I know we have more hands up. I think we've gone around on this. I'd like to bring it back to the board for potential vote in terms of mechanics on the vote as I understand it. The motion has been made and seconded. In order to pass, it will require 3 votes or a majority of the voting members. So if anyone abstains, then that changes the math on that. But if it was a 2 to 2 to 1, the motion would not pass, it would fail. So it will need a majority.
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Michael.
If it is a 2-2 with an abstention, the initial motion stays in place, correct?
I defer to counsel. My understanding was that it would not. That it would not go forward. But I welcome smarter people than me to weigh in on that.
Well, I won't go that far, but I would say the vote to reconsider took you back to immediately before the vote that was taken, and so a vote of 2 to 2 to 1 or 2 to 2 and 1 abstention is not a positive motion. A positive vote. It's a tie vote, which is a no action vote essentially.
And if there were a 5-person board, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was asking Mr. Chairman if I could speak. I started speaking before I asked the chairman. If there was 2 positives and 3 abstentions, that would make it a no vote too, correct? So that would, yeah. So we're back to where we are.
No, actually, Selectman Toole, no, it would actually be a positive vote. If there are 2 votes positive and no negative votes because of the abstentions, then that's a majority of those present and voting. An abstention is treated as not a vote for purposes of looking at the quantum of vote needed to pass something.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So any further discussion amongst the board members before we move to voting on the motion at hand?
I just want to sort of state, I guess, publicly that, you know, again, coming in at this, well, it could be, you could consider it 20 years later or whatever, and being relatively new, you know, my sort of feeling on this was it's a lose-lose situation, and you know, I wish it wasn't where it's at. And you know, when it was brought up last meeting, it was stated that we had the legal right to petition, you know, the courts to withdraw the case, and I just felt, you know, very strongly. Again, it's not any negative reflection on our other volunteers, our colleagues on the Conservation Commission. There's too much he said, she said, and I can't figure out what's, you know, it's been, you know, challenging to sort of figure out, you know, what's opinion and what's fact. So I took this as an opportunity to sort of say, you know what, I don't know who's right or wrong, but I do know that either way, it's bad for the town in general. And I'd like to just see us figure out a way to work it out. So that was sort of my reasoning.
Thank you.
Jack, I would just like to add, you know, certainly thank you to Lauren and Alex for being on, and, you know, our discussion on the clarification of the two actions being able to take place at the same time, you know, without going into the details of the executive session. That was actually how I felt we had left that last meeting. So it's nice to have that confirmation on here. And, you know, to Meg's point, I mean, we talked about this, and I know we're limited in talking about it, but it's you know, it's an important discussion, certainly for the town, I guess, is what I'll limit my comment to right now.
Michael?
I think you know where I feel, you know, the cases of residents, business owners, this is a very complicated case, that the select board was not consulted regarding litigation of this case before it went to the SJC, nor did we were updated on, because I think if we were updated on it, I think we would have been like, get back to the table before it even got to the SJC. So it's part of my motivation here, and kind of withdrawing it, but I would encourage everyone just to realize that this is going to affect, this is, to make this point, this is a lose-lose situation, and this possibly could ruin a business and a family in town, and I ask you to kind of be aware of that when you're voting. There's no upside here, so.
Thank you, Michael.
Go ahead,
Christine. No, go ahead, Christine.
No, I just want to add, and I'm not sure if this is relevant to this. The reason why we're taking a second vote is out of respect. It's not trying to get one way or another. It is about respect. Having the full board is respectful. You know, because this is an important situation, as everybody has stated. It is a lose-lose situation no matter what, but it is about respect too. And I'd appreciate it if everybody understood that the reason why.
Oh, Christine, you just muted yourself.
Oh, no, I was done, sorry.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for that. I will echo everyone's comments here that this is just an incredibly challenging situation. Lose-lose does not even begin to summarize it, and I personally wish that a number of people over the past 30 years to now had acted differently at various points to bring us to a spot that was not here and was not now. I will say that regardless of however this vote comes, that negotiation door should remain open. I know, Alex, you are ready and willing. I know we certainly are as well. So this is not however this goes, it's not a final. We can go down two paths at the same time. It is hard to chew gum and walk, but I think we can try to figure out a way forward to give at least some chance at an outcome that's not crippling for everyone involved. All right. No further discussion amongst the board. We'll go to the vote. And as a reminder, Michael, do you want to restate your motion just for clarity?
I'd like to make a motion for the town to withdraw its litigation at the SJC for the Paisley's versus Norton without prejudice.
Okay. So that was the motion. It has been seconded. So now it is the vote. So a yes vote would be for withdrawal. A no vote would be not withdrawing. Just I want to make sure everyone is abundantly clear. Okay, Meg?
Yes.
Renee?
No.
Christine?
Abstain.
Michael?
Yes.
And I am a no. So that is a 2-2-1. So my understanding is that motion does not carry. So I'm seeing nods from Lauren and Alex. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for that discussion and for the public comments. Let's keep that door open, everybody, and that goes equally for the town side as well. All right. Any other new business, Mike?
No.
Okay. Thank you, sir. That brings us to, I see old business, but I believe that's what we just talked about. Is that correct? Review letter and citizen position regarding Bella Music and discuss, is this the litigation policy? Is that a discussion we would like to have tonight, or should we hold off on that for another evening?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a recommendation that we hold off on that. Just kind of think we're all kind of heightened because of the subject matter and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to, but I would like to put it on our next meeting. I apologize. I just thought it because is this litigation? Is this just an update of litigation, or is this actually talking about a policy?
An update of litigation would have to happen in executive session, and I believe that is planned for another date. This would be for the development of a litigation policy for the select board and the town.
I would be in favor of this discussion, but I think I would ask them if the board would consider bumping it to our next meeting. Just kind of time, it's just the emotional thing, and I don't think it would be productive in the conversation.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Christine just let me know that her internet cut out and they are rebooting their network now, so we may be without her for the next few moments.
Jack, could I insert just a comment? No, I'm not going to argue this. I'm fine with you pushing it.
Please be brief, Rob. We got a lot going on.
Okay. I would like to ask, could you separate the two things, the PACES and the discussion of litigation policy? Like maybe what got bumped to next week is simply a discussion of the litigation policy. The PACES could be considered a symptom of what people are concerned about, but I think I've voiced this before. There really is a separate concern as to what is the town doing that's independent of what's going on with the PACES. This is the policy where I'm talking about controls and transparency, but I'd like to see that discussed as a separate topic from what's going on with the PACES.
I think that's fine, and I think that's how I understood that item would be.
That was my point.
Yep. So I know
we've got a second the praise of you, though, if you want to let me put that in too.
I could not hear what you said. I'm sorry.
I said I was earlier when I had my hand. I was going to second that praise of you, though.
Well, thank you. I don't feel it's particularly deserved, but I appreciate it.
Well, no, I appreciated you going forward with that discussion. I was sorry I didn't get into that one, but the fact that you held it, I appreciate it. Well, thanks.
Thank you. So with regards to one of the specific points you had brought up, and I think it was mentioned at a previous meeting, an update of what cases the town is involved in. I know that Mike, our town manager, has reached out to get something to that effect posted on the town website. That I think we agree that should, some status level of ongoing activity of which is public knowledge should be available. So I don't know, Mike, where that stands.
I'll defer to Lauren on what can be posted on town website concerning cases.
Mr. Chair, through you, I would suggest that we do a litigation status report and executive session first, and then the board can decide what it would like to disclose about the various issues. Typically, ongoing cases, I know this is not going to come to it as a surprise to anyone on this call, but typically ongoing cases, we meet in executive session because our litigation position might be impacted if we met in open session. I will say that in order to go into executive session to provide a litigation status report, all of the town's legal matters that are cases would all be on the meeting notice. So certainly the public will know it's being discussed, and as I said earlier, any documents, unless there's a court order prohibiting the same, any documents that were filed by the town or by anyone who has sued the town or who the town has sued for enforcement purposes are available upon request. So certainly the materials themselves can be made available.
Okay. So if I'm hearing correctly, we are working towards it. I think we have a date scheduled for that legal update, and we can take it from there. So.
Boy, thank you. That's a step in the direction I was looking. So thank you,
Rob. Thank you, Lauren. That brings us to town manager's reports. Mike, take us away.
Sure. I just wanted to give you an update on receipts so far. I gave you a report, and actually the receipts coming in pretty good. One that you'll notice, motor vehicle excise we've collected through May 443,000 less than a year ago. And so I was questioning why that was, and it turns out that the warrant that's usually issued in April wasn't issued until June 6th. And that was $563,000. So that won't be due technically until July 6th. So it would be in this next fiscal year. But everything else, no surprise that other excise we've collected, that is the mails tax, and we've collected roughly 57,000 less than the previous year. We'll probably hit our target because we still have 1 quarter to go. By the end of June, we should be receiving a wire transfer from the state for the last quarter on that. But everything is, as far as budgeted, we're pretty close or above what we predicted.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Any questions for Mike on that?
And contact me if you do.
Very good.
Yeah. Next, I just wanted to let you know that on June 14th, the Economic Advisory Council approved the Home Depot TIF. So that is now a certified TIF.
And that was the TIF that was approved as part of the annual town meeting back in May, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
And one last thing, at a previous meeting, there were some residents on. We were talking about the opening of Xfinity, which will open on July 10th with the first concert. And so I reached out, and the current email that people that want to get notifications should sign up for the neighborhood notification by sending an email to xfinityguestservices@livenation.com. And that way they'll be on the email list that Xfinity has, so any updates they have to give to residents will be done through that.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
And that's it.
All right. Anything else for Mike this evening? All right. Thank you, sir. Next up is Select Board's report and mail. Go around the horn. Anyone have anything they'd like to bring up?
Jack, did you mention the recognition? Did you want to mention that in this meeting? That we received via email?
I think that would be fantastic as a start. Let me see how quickly I can find that. So we received, unsolicited, a note from the father of a Wheaton College student the other day, praising two specific members of Norton Fire Department. And if I can find my way through my email, I can try to do that and read it, because it was very well written and well deserved for the folks that are there. And Mike, for the love of all that is good, I cannot seem to find that email.
I have the letter in front of me if you, whatever you need out of it.
Yeah, if you would just like to sort of read that in or summarize it, would be phenomenal.
I will try my best or talk really quickly. Okay. This is a letter of appreciation for the work of several employees from the Norton Fire Department and to say thank you for their excellence. I suspect you don't see enough of these. Well, today's your day. Two people from Chief Simmons' crew, Rebecca L. Mowry and Captain Michael Wilson, did such an outstanding job. You need to hear the story. What is more amazing is their effort, professionalism, and kindness involves an issue of virtually no importance to the department, but with significance to my family. The backstory then: my daughter attended Wheaton from 2013 to 2017. Allie took her very first ambulance ride in January 15 in a rig from the Norton Fire Department. She was fine, but the copay never got paid. Where it got lost, I don't know, and had I known, fast forward 6 years and my daughter gets a notice of collection from First Financial Resources with notice to the credit bureau is already in place. Her credit dropped 70 points in about 45 days, which is when I called and talked to Miss Mowry for the first time. I had already written FFRI and had not heard back. My goal was to simply get any information possible about the original billing. Rebecca was unfailingly polite, courteous, and helpful. She promised to call back, and she did. By that time, I had some information from FFRI, so she wanted to talk to Captain Wilson and said she would call back, and she did that. The third time when I talked, I provided additional information, and she wanted to talk to the captain with the new intel. By this time, she had heard the whole sad story and the impact on Allie's credit. When she heard back the third time, Rebecca informed me she and Captain Wilson had called FFRI, talked to them, and they were willing to remove the claim/notice of debt and delinquency upon payment. I was amazed, gobsmacked, and thrilled. Your people had taken the time, energy, and effort to help my kid around an unpaid bill, which you no longer had any interest or involvement in. Rebecca and Michael had not only gone the extra mile, they had carried in the food and supplies for the rest of the journey. Mr. Conway, I have spent almost 30 years as a prosecutor in Rutland County, Vermont. As the chief deputy, I specialize in crime and violence against women and children. I ran our Child Advocacy Center and worked with children, city, state, and federal law enforcement, not to mention arson investigations. In all my experience, I cannot recollect the level of assistance and kindness the people provided, and for a stranger with no longer any ties to Norton. Miss Lowry and Captain Wilson were astounding in a world filled with the mediocre and half-assed. Ooh, sorry, I don't know if I can say that. They're a credit to the Norton Fire Department and the town of Norton. We are so grateful. My family wanted to thank the department formally for their work. In appreciation of their excellence, we would like to make a donation to assist the Norton community. We have asked Chief Simmons for suggestions.
Thank you very much, Christine. I think that just goes to highlight the types of quality individuals that we have, not just in Norton Fire, but across the town. Just a truly human act of kindness. So thank you very much to Rebecca and to Captain Wilson. for what they've done for this family, and I'm sure many others that might not get as much recognition. So Renee, thank you for reminding us that was something that we could bring up tonight.
Sure. No, thank you guys for reading it. Thanks, Christine, for having that at the tip of your fingers. And Jack, I just had one other update, if I may, for the board.
Please do.
I know I've talked previously about a host community agreement that Mike and I were working on, and just want to let the board know that we should see this agenda item hopefully on our next meeting, if not the meeting after. So just in preparation for the discussion, just so you guys know that that's coming. We'll send it, of course, beforehand so that the board can review it prior to discussion.
Thank you, Renee. Anyone else before I get to my items? All right, I will jump in. So I have 2 or 3 things that have come to my attention over the past few weeks. The first one is regarding the Norton Kayak company, Mike. So Dave had asked for some assistance with getting that property cleaned up. If you could just provide an update tomorrow as to when some of those items can be done.
I did. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jack.
No, go ahead.
I did talk with Brian today, and I know he and Keith were working on some of them, so I'll give you an update.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next one continues to come up is the ongoing situation with Juniper Beach. We had talked before about some materials coming up out of the ground, old fence posts, old sign posts. I think we're going to try to have Keith go down and take some of those up. Those are still present. Realize it's only been 2 weeks since we talked about it, but if we could try to get a commitment as to when those items can be removed. I think they do present a hazard to anybody that is going down that way.
Okay.
And then more ongoing is just the parking situation. So at our last meeting, we talked about getting a group of residents together, and I know I haven't done anything to move that forward, so I'll try to commit to doing something on that this week, so we can try to get some good community forums moving. I see Tori, you're on, and you've been helping me keep an eye on the situation down there. So welcome your comments.
Yeah, how's it going this evening, everybody? I've been down there, like I said last time you guys had a meeting, I'm down there literally almost every day with my son. It's just a place where we like to go and hang out and fish and whatnot. The things about the safety, like the poles sticking out, like where people drive, the chain link fence sticking out of the ground, which is now literally into the spot where you want everybody to turn around, where we want our fire department to turn their vehicles. The fencing is now coming apart in small sections as like the size of nails. Not only just that is, like you said, the parking to the point where the sign isn't working. We had 3 vehicles parked directly underneath the sign. I mean, I understand that Jennifer she's doing her best and trying to get things done and, get things going and getting things motivated, but I think we need to move a little bit quicker because it's to the point now where we've seen aggravation down there where it's supposed to be someplace to go and chill out, hang out, and it's not that. I mean, people literally backing their trailers in, leaving their trailers in the water and leaving their truck on the boat ramp because they have no other place to go. I mean, that's not an okay situation because what happens if something goes down? You need to get a truck and a trailer in there, and you can't. I think we isolated to just the community over here on the reservoir, and if I don't know about Winnicott, I don't know, I haven't really heard much about them, or just the other bodies of water, let everybody handle their own in a sense. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but I mean, when we go down there, you should see it, and nobody knows about the kayak place down there, 123. I don't know what the number is on Mansfield Avenue, but
237.
Yeah, nobody. And the other thing is too is the amount of people coming from other states. The other day we was down there that we counted 7 Rhode Island license plates down on there, and not all of them were together. There was a lot of people separated from one another, and other surrounding communities also. You know what I mean? Like we've got Mansfield, Foxborough, and listen, we don't want to chase anybody away. I mean, we've got something that's really cool out there for everyone to enjoy, and I believe that's something that everyone should enjoy. I just want to be a little bit more proactive and get things rolling a lot quicker, because it's getting to the point now where it's getting bad. It's getting severely bad down there. Come down on the weekend and hang out and watch it. You'll see exactly what I mean.
Thank you,
I appreciate the time too, guys, for letting me speak. I really do appreciate that.
Absolutely. I appreciate the help. Yeah, I think, at least for me personally, it seems to follow this cycle of when it's off season, it's deprioritized. And then by the time the season comes around again, it takes so much momentum to get going again that by the time we finally get ahead of steam, it's off season. And we really need, to Tori's point, to make a concerted effort from now until it's resolved to try to bring this done. It's been years and years.
I'm sorry, Jack. If I can speak one more time, there's a couple of quick, simple fixes that can be done right away. One, the sign being removed 15 feet from up a tree where, I mean, somebody could use the simple rule of saying, hey, listen, I didn't see the sign because it's so high up the tree. Put it on the metal post like in a normal situation and put it right in front of everybody's face. Removing the fencing and the things like that, that's something very simple. I mean, you know, with our equipment our town has, it'll be fast, right? And it is all old town fencing that was back from the day. And the other thing is two signs that completely contradict themselves, and they're stacked one above the other. I mean, how does that look if you're a boater and you pull up and one sign says must be off the water by sunset and the other one says must be off the water by 10 p.m. You know, and that's us putting up those signs up. You know, that's our community putting those signs up. And I guess the only other question I ever had is, do we actually have to have this come up the other day? I saw it on Norton Davis, and I didn't really know the answer to this. Do you have to have a permit to be on those islands at night?
Mike, I don't know. Do you?
I believe you're supposed to notify conservation.
So
if you're going to be on there overnight.
Well, my curiosity was, even if it didn't cost anything, if you did have like to fill out some sort of paperwork, at least we would know who was out there.
Yeah, that's what it is. It doesn't cost anything. They're going to notify conservation that they're going to be out there overnight.
Are they also supposed to let them know if they plan to set a fire that's going to require the fire department to come out and put it out, or is that just something unexpected that we get to deal with? Probably the latter, I suppose.
Well, that's why I was wondering, because that would hold people accountable for something, you know what I mean?
And it goes back to enforcement. It's so hard to have regular enforcement in that area, especially overnight. It's a challenging situation. We will get it going.
And I personally, if we mentioned something about flyers, if the town wants to do something like that, I personally will run around every single house around here. I have no problem delivering them on my own. I'm good with that.
Thank you for volunteering. And Christine, I think you just put a link in the chat that goes to is that the water body survey that Conservation is coordinating?
Yep, I was just, the main reason is for what Tori said about the out of state. And I know one of the questions is about, you know, like would you as a resident be comfortable with paying for a permit? You know, so it's where you can add your opinions about everything. I think there's even like a free form at the end. There's like a free form section where you can just write anything that pertains to the situation. But I would personally, to add to this, I would like to see Norton residents get free permits out of town, $100 for the year. It's really not that hard. That's my personal opinion. That way it limits it to the town, all towns, because people from Winnacunnet can come over. We can go over to Winnacunnet. I say we because I live in the Grove. So, but you know, you can go to all the water bodies. I think that, but that's something to add your personal opinion to in the survey.
Great. Thank you very much. And I think that is available on the town website, and Conservation, I think Parks and Rec as well have shared it online. So welcome anybody's feedback there. Okay. And one last item on Juniper Beach is the trash pickup. So I think with activity picking up, especially over the weekends, the trash can gets overflowed pretty quickly, especially by Monday morning. There's typically stuff all over the place. One of our, Dave from Norton Kayak had actually reached out to Highway. They had agreed to pick it up on Friday and Monday. I don't believe it was done on this Monday. There was some stuff there. So Mike, if you could just follow up with Keith and company to make sure that gets added into the regular schedule.
Okay.
The last thing we want to do is attract even more wild animals to that area. All right. I think that's our report and mail. Go to warrants and minutes. So I've approved payroll warrant PR 21-26 for the week ended June 12, 2021. Warrant dated June 17, 2021 in the amount of $5,447,292.03. Invoice warrant AP 21-51 dated June 17, 2021 in the amount of $1,444,325.93. Invoice warrant AP 21-52 dated June 24th, 2021 in the amount of $889,073.86. Which brings us to our minutes, a much shorter list than we've had before. I will admit I have not gone through any of these additional minutes, so perhaps we kick those to next time. I think all but the executive session should be posted as draft on the site, so we're not holding them up. So being visible there. All right. Our next meeting agenda, our next meeting would be July 8th, 2021, wherein we will talk about setting the fall town meeting dates. Is there any other business to come before the board this evening before we move to executive session?
Yeah, is this next meeting going to be hybrid?
That's an excellent question, Peter, and I regret that we did not have that on the agenda, but I think that's fair to talk about now, unless someone tells me otherwise. We had originally planned on tonight being in person with the extension of the emergency order, and out of consideration of some member situations, we did hold this one as virtual. Any issue if we recommit to going in person at the library as of July 8th? I believe Jason at Norton Media had confirmed that they are all set up and ready to go for room and Zoom participation, so the public can still join from home as well as in person. I believe the intent is to have as many members as physically present there as possible.
Go with that.
Okay. Seeing no dissension from that. So Peter, you'll get to see us on the 8th.
That's right. Finally, an in-person meeting for the first time since March 2025. We returned to writing notes on my notepad. Maybe hang out at the library before, and then say out to all the town employees and hi to the fire inspector. It is for the first time since March 2020 that we have an in-person meeting.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your patience with us, Peter. It's so glad to be able to get back in there.
That's right. That's right, Jack.
All right. Seeing no other business come before the board, I declare under General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, little a3, that the purpose of the executive session will be to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, i.e. bill of music, because the discussion of the strategy in open session could compromise the purpose of the executive session, and with the board to not return to open session at the conclusion of the executive session. If you go to the last page of the packet, there's a specific motion that needs to be made.
I move that the board go into executive session under General Law, Chapter 30, uppercase A, Section 21, lowercase a, 3, for the purposes of the reasons declared by the chair, and with the board to not return to open session thereafter.
a second for them? Okay,
Second.
I'll take that as a second. Okay, that's a roll call to go in. Meg?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Michael? And I am yes as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening.